The film begins with a ballet dancer who appears fragile and incapable of harming anyone. But when night falls, she transforms into a professional assassin. Criminal gangs need only encounter her once, and none survive to tell the tale. This time, however, a fanatical cult dares to target her. Their reason is simple: they kill purely for pleasure. This cult is no trivial group. It has existed and thrived for more than 1,000 years. After losing her mother and sister, Eve moves with her father, Xavier, to a remote island. Xavier is a loving father who often dances with Eve, who dreams of becoming a professional ballerina. One day, Xavier gives her a music box as a gift of encouragement. Eve treasures it deeply. But disaster comes from the sea. A group of men in black suddenly appear, assassins sent to eliminate Xavier and his daughter. The reason? Xavier was once an assassin himself, though he retired long ago. The intruders swiftly wipe out the villa's guards. With his sharp instincts and vast experience, Xavier immediately senses danger. He strikes first, taking down several attackers. Xavier hurls a grenade to cause chaos, then rushes inside to find Eve. Speaking to her in a foreign tongue, he tells her not to come out, then hides her in a secret room. Afterward, he returns alone to fight. From inside, Eve hears the clash outside. Anxiously, she peeks out and sees her father locked in a fierce battle. Though capable of fighting 10 men at once, the sheer number of enemies overwhelms him. Xavier is eventually subdued. At that moment, the cult's leader, known as the Lord, emerges. He reveals that Xavier once married a member of their cult, but later fled with Eve, forcing his wife to atone with her life. The Lord points a gun at him, giving two cruel choices: Xavier dies so his daughter may live, or both will be executed if he resists. Without hesitation, Xavier chooses death. But Eve, terrified, cries out, "Father!" And everything changes. Xavier seizes the moment, shooting one assassin, snatching a gun, and gunning down several others. He rushes to Eve but is ambushed and knocked down. In that dire instant, a gunshot rings out. Eve, summoning all her courage, pulls the trigger and saves her father. They flee together. Xavier fires back at their pursuers but is gravely wounded. Before leaving the villa, he manages to activate the timed explosives. The mansion erupts in flames, yet the Lord escapes unscathed. From afar, he watches the inferno before turning away. Though they escape, Xavier succumbs to blood loss. Eve sits in silence beside his body, her eyes empty, her heart consumed with hatred. The police later discover her and take her in. Not long after, Winston Card, the manager of Continental Newsort, arrives. Claiming to be an old friend of Xavier, Winston offers to take Eve to a place her father once called home, where she would be cared for. Eve agrees, unaware that this decision will alter her life forever. Winston leads her to a theater, home to the Ruska Roma organization. Its leader, pleased to see Eve, decides to train her as a dancer. Thus, Eve officially joins the infamous assassin training syndicate, Ruska Roma. Before leaving, Winston hands her a coin, promising he will come whenever she needs help. Eve is then trained by Nosy, a Kikimora of the organization. Nosy reveals that her father was also a Kikimora. According to myth, Kikimora is a spirit of vengeance, an embodiment of destruction for the wicked, but a protector of the innocent. How that power is used depends on the bearer. 12 years pass. Through relentless training day and night, Eve grows stronger. She befriends Tatiana, who often worries about her bloodied feet from practice. Beyond ballet, Eve trains in firearms, close combat, and survival tactics. At first, she fails repeatedly, until Nosy reminds her, don't rely solely on strength, discover your own advantage. From then on, Eve changes her style, relying on agility and speed. Soon, she masters every trial. Eve becomes the most promising candidate of the new Kikimora generation. But one day, Tatiana vanishes. The organization's leader coldly explains that she was eliminated because her hatred had faded, something unacceptable for a Kikimora. Soon after, Eve is given her final test, a duel assembling a firearm against a veteran who had failed her mission. Whoever assembles and fires first lives. Eve completes it first, the moment bringing back the memory of saving her father. That day, she officially becomes a Kikimora. Sometime later, Eve encounters John, a legendary figure in the organization. Naively, she asks how she can become as great as him. John replies only, think again. The path of violence brings nothing. But at that time, Eve does not understand. Her first mission is to protect the heir of an ally. At a lavish party, she quickly realizes her client is being targeted. A brutal fight breaks out. Though armed only with rubber bullets, Eve showcases her extraordinary skills, dispatching attackers swiftly, even defeating a female assassin with a hammer. The mission is a success, and she is awarded an honorary tattoo. As time passes, Eve grows more efficient and deadly in her assignments. But one night, after assassinating a gang leader, her car is ambushed. She fights ferociously, ultimately killing her sword-wielding assailant. On his hand, she discovers a cross-shaped scar, the unmistakable mark of the cult that murdered her father. Eve severs the marked hand and places it on the Ruska Roma leader's desk. The leader admits it belongs to an ancient, dangerous organization bound by a truce with Ruska Roma, forbidding retaliation. Eve is ordered to drop it. But she cannot. She travels to continental New York to meet Winston, revealing everything. He warns her the path will only bring misery. But Eve stands firm. At last, Winston tells her, her enemy is not just a criminal organization, but a fanatical cult that kills for pleasure. No one knows their true base. Yet there is one lead, a man named Daniel, in room 315 of the Continental Hotel in Prague, who once offered a massive bounty on one of their members, making him a target for countless assassins. Director Ruska Roma also contacted Winston at that time, but he could not interfere any further. He only wished Eve good luck. Eve immediately departed for the Czech Republic, heading to the Continental Prague Hotel. She rented room 314, right next to the targets. The hotel was swarming with assassins hunting for the bounty. Eve stuck to her plan to infiltrate Daniel's room, unaware that a sniper was lying in ambush across the street. When she entered, she was startled to see only a little girl, Ella, Daniel's daughter. For a moment, Eve saw her younger self, which instantly softened her heart. At that moment, Daniel appeared and pointed a gun at her. Eve quickly raised her hands, explaining that she only wanted to know the cult's headquarters to avenge her father. Suddenly, a woman named Lena entered the lobby and turned the entire situation upside down. Lena announced that the bounty on Daniel's head would be raised to $4 million. This information sent all the assassins in the hotel into a frenzy. Daniel realized his time was running out and told Eve the people she sought were already close, those hunting him and his daughter. Before he could finish, killers stormed in. Daniel opened fire, and Eve was forced to fight. With her support, Daniel pulled Ella out of the siege. Eve cut down more assassins and ran after them. Once the three entered the elevator, Daniel revealed the truth. The only way out of the cult was death. All he wanted now was to protect his daughter. He entrusted Ella to Eve and promised to give her the cult's location, reassuring Ella she could trust Eve. As soon as they exited the elevator, Daniel stayed behind to hold off the assassins. Eve and Ella had barely run when they turned back and saw Daniel collapse under a hail of bullets. The sight shocked Eve. Memories of her father's death resurfaced like an old wound. In panic and carelessness, Eve was struck from behind and knocked unconscious. Before blacking out, she glimpsed Lena taking Ella away. When Eve awoke, she and several assassins were being tried by the Continental Prague Hotel management for breaking the no-kill rule. Eve successfully explained that she hadn't killed anyone on hotel grounds. Manager Seth verified this, and Eve was released, while the others were executed. Once free, she immediately went to a weapon shop and asked to see its special collection. She also inquired about the cult, but the shopkeeper shook his head. While inspecting weapons in the basement, gunfire rained down. Eve reacted swiftly, gunning down one attacker and retreating deeper inside. She searched for weapons, but all rifles were unloaded. Fortunately, she found a crate of grenades and hurled them down the stairs, wiping out many enemies. Still, the danger wasn't over. Eve moved nimbly, eliminating the rest outside the shop. After the fight, the furious shopkeeper checked the bodies and discovered cult markings. Enraged by the destruction of his store, he finally gave Eve information. He opened a map and pointed to a mountain, rumored to be the cult's headquarters. Everyone who went searching there had never returned. Without hesitation, Eve set off. On the way, she received a call from Director Ruska Roma, who ordered her to return immediately. Eve refused and pressed forward, arriving in a small town near the target area. There, she saw a shop selling ballet music boxes, replicas of the gift her father had once given her. She entered, moved by the sight. Just then, a man walked in and suddenly attacked. Eve retreated into the shop, assuming her stance. With agility and experience, she pressed the attack, leaving him disoriented. But he had remarkable endurance. The battle dragged on until Eve seized his gun and shot him. But it wasn't over. As she was leaving, a female chef blocked her path, attacking with kitchen weapons. Eve quickly overwhelmed her, but realized this was only the beginning. She had stepped into the cult's heartland. The seemingly harmless townsfolk armed themselves and hunted her down. Using her knack for crafting weapons, Eve modified a gun with a blade, cutting through waves of enemies. But soon the town's loudspeakers blared an order to capture her. More armed groups came after her. She fought back but was eventually overwhelmed and captured. When she came to, Eve found herself before Lena and guards. Lena, who had already captured Ella, reported to the Lord that Eve was a member of Ruska Roma. Seeing the Kikimora tattoo on Eve's back, the Lord confirmed it. Stunned, Eve listened as he spoke of the peace treaty between the two organizations. But Eve denied involvement with Ross, insisting everything she did was her own choice. The Lord assumed she had come to rescue Ella and revealed a shocking secret. Ella's father, Daniel, was his son, making Ella his granddaughter. Daniel's attempt to take his daughter away was unforgivable. Eve was appalled by his coldness. She declared she hadn't come to save anyone, but only to avenge her father. The Lord left the room. Outside, he told Lena another truth. Eve was her sister. Lena was shaken, but before she could process it, gunshots rang out. Eve had broken free and was attacking guards. As one was about to strike her down, Lena stepped in and saved her. Eve didn't understand but seized the chance to escape. Lena chased after her. They finally stopped in a room and faced each other. Lena revealed they were sisters, both born into the cult. Their father, Xavier, had only taken Eve away because he suspected Lena was already brainwashed, and he was right. Even knowing the cult had murdered their parents, Lena still served the Lord. Eve insisted their father sacrificed everything to protect them both. While they argued, the Lord's men surrounded the house. The Lord ordered them to kill each other. A grenade was thrown in, blasting the house apart. Eve survived, but Lena was fatally wounded. In her final moments, Lena confessed she had never stopped missing Eve. Then she died in her sister's arms. Rage and grief consumed Eve. She picked up a sword and slaughtered anyone in her path. Eve then radioed the Lord, declaring the bloodshed would only end with his death. Realizing the crisis, the Lord contacted Ross, accusing her of breaking the truce. He threatened war unless she dealt with the matter internally. To calm the situation, Ross offered to send someone. The Lord agreed but gave her an ultimatum. Eve must die before midnight. A deadly assassin, John's successor, was dispatched. At the same time, the Lord ordered his cult to halt pursuit of Eve until midnight. John Wick followed the trail and found Eve in the snowy mountains. He stood before her and gave her two choices: leave and live, or stay and die. Without hesitation, Eve drew her gun. Yet her skills failed to harm him. He moved fluidly, dodging and blocking, never striking back. Eventually, Eve was defeated. When her gun was knocked away, she grabbed a sword, but John aimed his pistol at her head. Looking into the eyes of someone who had lost everything, he couldn't pull the trigger. He spared her life and told her she had less than half an hour to finish everything. Eve rushed to the cult's headquarters. She took out a guard at the entrance but was quickly discovered. Furious that John Wick had broken the rules, the Lord ordered all his men to hunt her down. To gain an edge, Eve slipped into the armory. The enemy stormed in, and she fought desperately, using any weapon she could grab. The fanatics attacked like moths to a flame. Eve set grenade traps, killing many. Then she seized a flamethrower and incinerated the rest. Only the Lord's most loyal warrior remained. They clashed hand to hand, fire raging around them. Even engulfed in flames, he attacked relentlessly. Eve ran into a neighboring house and found a fire hose. Their battle turned into a struggle of fire against water. The fight dragged on until the hose ran dry. Just as her foe prepared the final strike, a bullet struck his weapon, causing it to explode. John Wick had returned, cutting down anyone nearby. Meanwhile, the Lord attempted to flee with Ella in a car. Eve intercepted, killing the driver and stopping the vehicle. With no escape, the Lord confronted her. Arrogantly, he declared that even if he died, the cult would live on. But Eve didn't care. She raised her gun and ended his life. She then rescued Ella. At the same time, John contacted Ross to confirm the Lord's death. More shocking still, Daniel was alive, being treated at the Continental Prague. When Eve brought Ella back, the girl was overjoyed to reunite with her father. They embraced in tears. Yet Eve's journey was far from over. Winston, her old mentor, came to see her. He warned she was now a prime target in the assassin world. Because of her actions, she no longer had Ross's protection. Eve chose to hide at the Continental New York. One evening, she quietly attended a ballet performance. But as the stage lights dimmed, she realized she was no longer anonymous. Her name had appeared on the bounty board, with a price of $5 million. Eve left the theater, walking into the darkness. She knew the path ahead would only be filled with danger, and with that the movie ends here. This movie teaches us that true strength comes from perseverance, as pursuing one's dreams requires courage, discipline, and an unwavering heart.